Right. So yesterday I talked about these components. Every component has a tag name associated with it. Some of the components also have the mandatory attributes, right, and optional attributes also. Now, if you look at the same page which we were looking at, that is the gmail.com, right, and if you look at the Firebug file, if I observe any like the username field, I talked about the type attribute is mandatory in this, okay, in a text field, but all these attributes, ID, value, name, spell check, all these are optional attributes. Okay, again, if you look at the password field, then ID, name, and all are the optional attributes, right? So generally, what happens is in optional attributes, you have got ID, you have got name, you have got class. Generally, these three, or sometimes value also comes up, right? So these are some of the optional attributes which can be there with any particular web component, right? So right, and so I was talking about this Excel file, and I was talking about the various HTML components, the tag names of those components, the mandatory attributes, and optional attributes. Look, there is no specific optional attribute which can be assigned to any element, but there are some generic optional attributes which are specified over here, which can be assigned to any attribute. Okay. Now, when you use Selenium, you use this tag name, mandatory attributes, and optional attributes to actually go and identify your objects. Okay. So that's how we do it. Fine. Now, out here, I will actually talk about identifying elements right now. Okay. Now, to identify elements, there is a class in the API. If you go to the Selenium API documentation, look, for those of you who are joining the session directly today, okay, I have recorded the previous two sessions as well. I'll give you the recorded URLs after the class today. So just be there. You can watch the recorded URLs of the past two classes, and then you can, I'm also recording this class, you can watch this one as well. So things might not be that clear to you today if you're joining in for the first time in today's class. Fine. So if you go to the, as I was talking about, if you go to the Selenium documentation, and if you look at, go to the download section, if you look at the documentation of Selenium, the Java docs, then there is a class over here known as the class by. Okay, this class by has got the various options, right, through which you can select an element in a web page. Okay, for example, there are methods such as by the, class name, CSS selector, ID, link text, name, partial link text, tag name, Xpath. So all these are the mechanisms through which you can find an element. Okay. Now in Selenium, everything is a web element. Everything is categorized into a component or into something known as a web element. If you know QTP, then do not confuse this with the web element of QTP. That is something different. In Selenium, we have an interface. I talked about the interface yesterday, right? We have an interface called web element. Technically, we call a link as a web element, a button as a web element. So all these components technically are known as web elements in Selenium. Okay, so I'll answer that question later on. Right. So technically, each of these elements is known as a web element. Okay. Now, a web element is actually an interface. Okay, and in this interface, you have various functions which can be actually performed on any element on a web page. Okay, for example, click, get size, get location, right? Send keys to type, is selected, is enabled, right? So, sorry, in my code, what I'll be writing is something like this. I'll create a new Java project. Day 3, and I'll go and add external jar files. Right, and in the external jar files, okay, I'll actually create a new class. Oh, sorry, in the source I'll make a new class, and I'll call that class a simple class Gmail. I'm not taking a very complex example. I am just taking a very simple example. Okay, right? Now let's start. I'll start this course from very simple examples. I'll go from very simple to complex things. Okay, I'm not going to simply jump over to complex scenarios and testing and all. First, you should actually get your basics clear. If you have your basics clear, you can easily do anything. Okay, so let's write the code. WebDriver driver equals to new Firefox driver. Okay, and driver dot get gmail.com. Okay, now if you actually write the line driver dot, when you write driver dot, you get a option over here called find element. Okay, now this function over here, find element, what it does, if you go back to the documentation of Selenium and you look at the WebDriver interface over here, okay, then this interface has got a function called find element. Find the first web element with the given method, right? What does this function returns? This returns you object of web element which I just talked about, and it accepts the reference of by class. Okay. Wait a minute, I'll just tell you how to use this. You write driver dot find element, in the bracket you write by dot, and you will get all the options through which you can find an element. By is a class, and all these are static components in the class. Okay, so suppose I want to find an element on the basis of ID or link text or name, whatever is the identifying mechanism I want to use, I can use. So all these are static functions inside the by class. Okay. Suppose you want to find an element by an ID. Now in my gmail.com website, if you go to gmail.com website and if you look at the username field, fine, then the ID of this field is email. Okay, you copy this ID email and you write it over here. by the ID. So I will, this what WebDriver will do, it will find the element on the basis of ID, and it will return you a reference of web element interface called say username field, like this. Find element function returns you web element object reference. Okay. Now every time whenever I have to look something into the features of Selenium or something like that, I have to go into the documentation, right, and I have to pull out the functions from there. Now there is a way that you can import the documentation of this, what do you say, this complete documentation, right? This can be imported into Eclipse, right? It's quite simple. All you need to do is that you need to copy this URL, the java.ua URL, or to be on the safer side, we had studied that you need to click on this java.link, right? You right click on this link and copy the link location. What I am trying to do here is I am trying to import the documentation of Selenium into Eclipse. Okay, so you copy the link location and you go to your project. Fine. You right click on the properties of the project and go to the properties. Fine. And again go to the Java build path and the libraries tab where you have added all the jar files. Okay, and in the jars you have got a jar called Selenium java.jar, the version number and the .jar file. Okay, you expand this jar and you will see the option java.doc location coming up. Okay, you edit this. Fine, you edit under Selenium java.jar java.doc location. You edit this, and there are two radio buttons. If you have got the documentation in your, what do you say, in your local machine, then you can give the path, or else you can give the URL over here which you just copied. You give the URL and remove index.html from it. Okay, remove index.html from here. Fine, and click on OK. Okay, that's it. So you have the documentation of Selenium imported into Eclipse. Fine. Now if you move your mouse, suppose I move my mouse over WebDriver, I will get what WebDriver is. It is an interface. Fine. This is the interface and all. These are the classes which are implementing the interface. If I click on say Firefox driver, right, in Eclipse itself, right, the Firefox driver class will open up. Fine. So you really don't need to go to the website or something. You have the complete documentation in Eclipse itself. If I am writing driver dot, I get all these functions. Right. Now I don't know what these functions do. So you just click on the function and you'll get the description of that function as well. Right. So these things are very important. These are the basics, right? Before jumping over to the project, right? You should be knowing these things. Fine. Now I have extracted the username field using the by class in Selenium API. Right. Question being asked is, do we need internet to integrate this document? Well, yes, obviously, because when you are working with Selenium, you have internet. You should be having internet with you. You need to open up a website and test, right? Otherwise, if you can download the documentation, then after downloading, you can actually give the path over here. If you want to give the path of your local machine, I just told you, like you can give the path of your local machine as well. You have to select the second option and give the path of your local machine. But generally I use the internet because when I am working with Selenium, I am always connected to the net, right? So that's why. Now this is the username field which I just extracted. Now I can write username dot and I will get these many options coming up. These are the options from the web element interface. Clear, click, find element, get class, get location, get size, get tag name, get text, is displayed, is enabled. So all these options they will come up with every web component. One of the options is send keys. This send keys function, what it does, you can just move your mouse over it and you can read the description. The send keys function use the method to simulate typing into the element which may set its value. So you can write send keys hello. So this will type hello inside the username. And similarly you can write web element password equals to driver dot find element by the ID, and you give the ID of the element over here, that is the password field. This is the ID. Okay, and you can write password dot send keys test. So this will simulate writing hello and test in the username and password field. If you run this code, you see that, okay, it types in hello as the username and this is the password. Fine. Now those of you who are attending directly today's session and who have missed the first two sessions, they might have a little bit of confusion, but I will give you the recorded URLs again repeat after the class, and your confusions will be like it will be more clear to you. Fine. Now what are the other ways in which you can identify the element? I have identified the element on the basis of ID. Now if the element has an attribute, say if the email field over here, it's having an attribute called name. You can also identify the element on the basis of its name. Okay, you can go here and you can write web element username equals to driver dot find element by the name. Okay, right, Sudhakar. Fine. So by the name email. So what this will do is this will set this into this. Right. Question being asked is what is the difference between generating the login script using IDE and importing Java code? Look, this is a very commonly asked question to me, that I record the script on IDE and I just import it into Java, export it into Java WebDriver and I run it. Fine. Look, you can do that, not a problem. Fine. But if you are stuck very badly. Look, I never export my scripts from IDE. I directly write my scripts. What is the reason behind that? The reason behind that is, suppose I give you a website to test, a practical website like bbc.com. Okay. Now everybody knows that the complete website will change in one day. If you look at this website bbc.com, all the links, the complete content, the complete text is gonna change in one day. Can record run work on this? It can work using IDE, it can work, but it's not so simple. If I record and export my test, and if I export the stuff today, tomorrow it might be that it's not working. Okay, so I'd never export my code from IDE, I never work on IDE. Better solution is always work on WebDriver, right? Open up Eclipse, get the basics clear and get the commands clear and then write it. You will be more confident in that way. This is the right way of doing it, right? Otherwise I have burnt my hands, I wasted a lot of time doing that. Exporting code from IDE looks very fancy, but it's not so easy, right? Okay, I hope this answers your question, right? So now I can identify the element by the name as well. Okay, if I run this code, this will write hello inside the email field. Okay, now this is out here we are lucky. We are lucky because the developer of the website for email has given an ID to this element, has given a name to this element. Okay, but what if the ID or the name is not given to the element? There is no ID associated with the element. There is no name associated with the element. Fine. In that case, how do I identify the element? One of the options out here to identify in that case is by the Xpath. Okay. So what is an Xpath? And some people say that it's not good practice to use Xpath or something. It's not like that. Depends on how you are building your Xpaths. Okay. So first, let us take the topic that what Xpath is. Fine. For doing that, let's go to my website qtpselenium.com and let's go to the login page. A simple page. I want to take a simple page. That's why I am taking the login page. This is the login page of the website. Fine. It's very simple. Only hardly 10 components are there on the web page. Fine. If I look at the Firebug and suppose I want to click on the login button. Fine. I want to click on the login button, or I want to type in the email field. Fine. If you look at the complete page source, now, as I told you yesterday, HTML is very important. Fine. This thing starts from the tag name HTML on the top, right? And inside it there are various tags. Under the body tag somewhere I have this input field. Okay. The Xpath is like the address of a component. It is unique for every object. Okay, for every element. Now, if I want to find the Xpath of this particular input field, it will be something like that. The first name is HTML tag is there. The first thing. Inside it there is a body tag, right? So you write /body over here. Now inside the body tags there are a lot of tags, but the one in which I am interested is this div tag, right? Because under the div tag, if I expand the div tag, I am having the input field which I want to use, right? So I will take this div tag like this, and under the div tag you have got a form tag. Inside this form, right, my field is lying. So /form / under the form tag you have the table tag, right? So you write table. Under the table tag you have the tag called table body. Fine. So you have the tag table body. Okay. And under the table body tag there are basically 5 tr tags, table rows. Okay. The one which I am interested is the third one, no, not the third one. Just a minute. Yeah, I am interested in the third tr tag because that has got the password field. Yes. Okay. I am interested in the third tr tag because under this tag the password field is lying. So what I do is I write over here tr bracket 3. That means I want to go in the third tr tag. Okay. Under the third tr tag you have got number of td tags, cells, right? 4 td tags, and I am interested in the third td tag because the input field is inside the third td tag. So I'll write td3, and in the end you have this input field. Fine. So you write /input. So this becomes your XPath. This is the XPath for your input field, and you can give the same XPath out here as well. You can write web element username equals to driver.find element by the, you get an option called XPath. Okay, and you give this XPath over here, right? And this will identify the element. Now, but the question arises: is XPath good? Is it good to use this kind of XPath? This kind of XPath is known as complete XPath. Okay, now I'll answer this question. Hold on, Rajshekhar. I'll answer this question. Fine. Now what happens is that, suppose tomorrow, okay, if the developer changes something, okay, if he introduces one more tag over here, then my code will go for a toss. Okay, I won't be able to do anything. I'll have to go and inspect the page again and change the XPath. So this kind of XPath, I also agree, this is not good. But there is something known as partial XPath which can be used. Okay, I'll talk about the partial XPaths as well, but first let me get to the question. The question is, some attributes are dynamically changes, then what can we do? Yes, what happens is that at some times in some web applications, what happens is that, suppose this is the ID of the email, right? In my code, what I was doing was I was identifying the email on the basis of ID. I was using this line and I was writing find the element whose ID is email. Now sometimes the ID keeps on changing dynamically. For example, if you look at the website like facebook.com, okay, and if you go and inspect this login button of Facebook, okay, if I go and inspect the login button of Facebook, then this is the ID of login button. Okay, I'll copy the ID and I'm answering Rajshekhar's question. I'll come back to the other subjects in some time, right? If you copy this ID and if you open a notepad, right, I'll paste the ID in this notepad. This is the ID. Okay, now I will close this web page, open a new browser and again go to facebook.com. And if you look at the ID of the login button now, this is the ID. You see that the ID is changing. A certain portion of the ID is remaining constant, but there is a certain portion which is changing. Okay. Now how do we manage these kind of IDs? Because in the code, if I write driver.find element by the ID and the ID is constantly changing whenever you are opening the website, that's not going to work. So there are various ways to handle this. I cannot talk about this right now because I'll have to talk. Look, I have to talk about Xpaths first to make you understand that. You can use some, I'll tell you something, you can use some inbuilt JavaScript functions for that. I'll talk about those functions later on in the course. Okay. You can also use your own custom Xpaths for this. You can use an alternate identifying mechanism like identify by CSS locators. Okay. So it's not mandatory to just use ID if the ID is changing. Okay. Now sometimes the IDs they change in a pattern. That means a certain portion remains constant and the rest of the portion changes. Like this. This portion will remain constant, but the rest of the portion changes. So you can tell Selenium that find the ID of the element which is starting with this. Okay. Similar kind of pattern is also observed over here. Okay. But there are various ways. There is not just one fixed way. I'll be talking about all these things in the course, right? So just be with me. Right? I know everybody, like most of the people over here, they want advanced things and all. But I will come over to all of them. I want to start with the basics because there are people in the training who have never even touched Selenium. Okay, so let's we start from the very root. Start from the very basics. Fine. Now I was talking about the Xpaths, right? And this kind of Xpath which I had formed was the complete Xpath. Fine. And there is also something known as a partial Xpath. Partial Xpath is you can say it is something like, okay, hold on. To understand it in a very better way, we go to Google and say download Firepath. Okay, Firepath is an add-on in Firefox which gets installed on the top of Firebug. Okay, you install the Firepath add-on, click on add to Firefox, and it will get downloaded and it will be added on to Firefox, and you restart your browser. Okay, now once you have restarted, right, suppose I go to Gmail again. Fine. If you open your Firebug, okay, or I go to the login, okay, let's take this one. Okay. Then you will see this thing coming up called Firepath over here. Okay. If you look at the Firepath and you inspect your element, okay, then Firepath will give you the Xpath of the element. Now, as I talked about, Xpath, there are two types of Xpaths. One is complete and other one is partial. Okay. The complete Xpath is also known as the absolute Xpath. Okay. Now, if you want to generate complete Xpath through Firepath, you can click on this option over here, generate absolute Xpath. When you click on this and if you spy the elements, you will see absolute Xpath coming up, similar to the one which I had just made manually. Okay, so this is a better option to calculate the Xpaths. That is, you just need to click on the arrow, move on the element, and this will give you the complete Xpaths. Fine. Now about the partial Xpaths. If you uncheck this option, then Firebug will give you a partial Xpath. For example, for this email field, it is giving you an Xpath like this. This Xpath basically is like this: // ID equals to email. This means that there is an element on a web page whose ID is email. Fine. You can also write // input. You can give the tag name @ID equals to email. Okay, instead of star is a kind of regular expression here, means any element on the page with ID email. So I did a more generic Xpath here, writing that // input. That means there's an input tag on the page whose ID is email. Fine, and you can go here and you can use the same Xpath out here as well. You can write // input whose ID is email. Fine, so you can identify the element on the basis of Xpath as well. Now if I run this code, this will go to Gmail and it will type the username and password. Right, so this thing is working. Fine. Now, if you actually go here and look at this element, fine. Now, if you look at the Xpath, then there's a dot in Xpath always in the beginning. Don't include this dot. This dot is given by Firebug, but please you do not include this dot. Fine. Now, suppose if the element is not having an ID, how is the Xpath is generated? If you go to the website like in.rediff.com, okay, just a general website in India, okay, and if you look at the sign-in link over here or any other link, say I look at the link over here, then this is the Xpath for this link. It is saying that there is an element with the ID sign-in info, and inside it there is a anchor tag a link. So basically what it's telling, this is span is having the ID as sign-in info, and inside the span you have the link a. So it started with this span, right? It started with the span, that is the tag name span was having this ID, and inside this span there is a link a. So that's how you make the Xpath in that case. Okay. Because this link was not having any ID, so Firebug gave us the Xpath like this. Fine. Now, what about Chrome and IE? How do you get the Xpaths over there? Well, in IE there is no option. You just have to go to the page source and make your own Xpaths. Okay. In Chrome, I have heard that there is an add-on in Chrome. If I right click, I get the option inspect element, but out here you don't get the Xpath. But in Chrome also there is an add-on. I have heard, I have never used it to be very frank, because I get the Xpaths from Firefox. The way the application is opening in Firefox, the same way it will open in Chrome, until or unless the developer has not designed a website which opens differently in every browser. Okay, so an Xpath in Firefox will be same as the Xpath in Chrome and will be same as the Xpath in IE. Right? But most of the times I also encounter situations in which you cannot do anything, but even the Firepath or Firebug, it cannot do anything, and you have to go to the page source and devise your own custom Xpaths. Okay, I'll talk about those scenarios later, fine, where you have to devise your own custom Xpaths, and you have to actually go into the page source and make the Xpaths yourself. Alright, now in this, right, what I have done is I have written two different lines. To deal with one component, I have to write two different lines over here. But I don't want to do that. I just want to write one line to deal with one component. Okay. So we just go and write this in straightforward single headed way like this. That is driver dot find element by the Xpath dot in the end send keys username, something like this. So this will be the web element, and we are using send keys into it. The execution starts from the left to the right, and similarly for the password, driver dot find element by the ID password dot send keys some password. Okay, so you can ignore this. Fine, right? These are you can directly write in one line. Okay, and this is what you would be seeing when you would be searching on internet about WebDriver. Many of you might have seen lines like these. Okay, so this is about identifying the elements with the help of Xpaths. Now what are the other options? Okay, you can identify on the basis of CSS selector, link text, partial link text, tag name, right? So there are various other options are there. We will keep on exploring the options as we go forward with the course. Okay, now for example, I have written some username in this username field. If I have to clear the username field, you can use this clear function. Sometimes an object is not displayed, it is hidden, right? If you want to check if an object is hidden or not, you can use this function, is displayed. It will return you true if the element is displayed, it will return you false if the element is not displayed. You can use this element is enabled, fine. Well, sometimes you have a text field. Sorry, you can use this function. Sometimes you have a text field which is you cannot write into it. It's not enabled. So you can use that function is enabled. If you want to click on an element, you can click on it, right? Suppose I want to click on the Gmail page itself. I want to click on this learn more link. So you simply get the Xpath of this learn more link. You see, it is getting the absolute Xpath in this case. Why? Because there is no ID and all involved anywhere in the page, right? So you can directly write, if you want to click on that link, driver.find element by the Xpath, and you give the Xpath of the link, in the end dot click. So to find any element, whether it's a link, whether it's a text field, button, or any element, you will have to use this command driver.find element, and in by class you have to give the criteria. Okay, and if you run this, this will simply write username, password, and click on the learn more link. Fine. Right. So any questions from anybody? Okay, anything till now? Right. Now Raji was asking me a question that whether you will be covering anything. Yes, I will be covering. Okay, I will cover a project. I will cover framework in the end. Okay, so that is the major objective of this whole course. Fine. What do you mean by a framework? It's like suppose you have got 1000 test cases to execute, right? Now how do you write the code? This is simple. This is just a very simple thing which I am telling you. Navigating to a page and using elements or something like that. Okay, but if you look at a framework is like which will help you to generate reports, execute test cases in batch. Fine. So I'll be taking up a website and I'll be automating it. I'll be automating a website which you also have the access to. Fine, and you will have a good exposure. Okay. There are various kinds of frameworks like hybrid framework is there, data driven is there. In Selenium we have got something known as page object model, that's also there. But first you need to learn Selenium, then you need to learn a testing framework like a TestNg or Junit, and then you need to integrate TestNg or Junit with Selenium, and then make a framework like a hybrid, data driven, or a page object model framework. So there are 3 stages involved. The first stage is learning WebDriver and Java concepts. The second stage is learning learning TestNg or Junit. Okay. The third stage is the framework, which is the actual project. Fine. I do not jump over to the project directly. Nobody will be able to understand. Okay. It's not so simple. Fine, like in the other batch I started with the TestNg tutorial and things have got a little complicated there. So you have to be a little patient, right? Don't expect complex things to come directly in your way. Fine. Now duration of the course, it will be approximately 20 to 23 hours. Fine. And do you provide us exercise after the class? Yes. As soon as I start with the concepts of WebDriver, little advanced concepts of WebDriver, I'll be giving you the exercises in class as well, right? And I will be giving you the exercises for your place as well. Okay? Right? Now, alright, fine. Now just if you want something to practice on, do one thing, go to this website, demo.virtumart.com, okay, and on this website hold on, just try to click on this shop link. It's not so simple. Okay? It's not something which I have explained you or if I have taught you right now. It looks simple, like a person would say that fine, I would simply use Firebug, get the Xpath, and I will click on it. But it's not that simple. Okay, just try to click on the shop link using Selenium. Fine. Any other question from anybody before I move further? No question? Right. Now let's look at another concept known as the concept of profiling of Firefox. Okay. If I run this program, you'll see a Firefox opening up, but you will observe that in this Firefox you have got, like, if you look at the bookmarks will not be there. For example, in my original Firefox window which I opened manually, okay, there is a bookmark called R. Fine, but in the Firefox which is opened by Selenium, there is no bookmark. Moreover, there is no Firebug installed in this browser. The Firebug, you can see that it is installed inside the Firefox which was opened by me. But the Firefox which was opened by Selenium, there is no Firebug. Okay. Now this is because Selenium starts a new profile every time. What do you mean by a Firefox profile? Well, Firefox profile is something like, you can say, a new instance of Firefox. Suppose you are 3 members of same family who are using and sharing a laptop or a desktop. Fine. Suppose me and my brother, we both want to share the same machine. When my brother wants that when he should open the Firefox, he should get his own settings in Firefox, his own set of bookmarks, his own set of add-ons inside Firefox. When I say that when I open Firefox, I should get only my set of bookmarks and my set of add-ons inside Firefox. So this is possible in Firefox. This is possible through the concept of Firefox profiling. Okay, what is Firefox profiling? It's like an instance of Firefox for every user. You can create a Firefox profile. It's quite easy. You can go to File, Exit menu and close Firefox from here. Do not close the Firefox from the top right cross icon. Close the Firefox from File, Exit menu. Okay. Then go to Start and go to Run and give the command firefox.exe -p profile manager. Give this command and you will see a window like this opening up. I'll give this command to everybody on the WebEx chat. I can copy this command. So this is the default profile which is there on your machine when you install fresh Firefox. You can create a new profile. I can create a new profile called Ashish, my name, and this is the profile. When I start this profile, what will happen is a fresh Firefox window will open up. Okay, maybe what I do is I'll just go to Google and I will add this, bookmark this page. I'll bookmark this page into my bookmarks but this bookmark would only be in my profile. Okay, if I close this Firefox from File Exit menu again and open the Profile Manager and I open the default profile, what will happen is that in default profile I will not have the Google bookmark. Right, now similarly, if I close this and I open the second Ashish profile, and I will see the Google bookmark in it. I will not have, there is no Firebug in this profile, I will have to add separately. Okay. So similar thing is done by Selenium. When Selenium executes the script, when Selenium opens a new Firefox, it starts its own profile, and that particular profile is destroyed in the end. Okay, if I want to tell Selenium that fine, go and open my particular profile known as Ashish, which I just created, I can do that. I'll talk about that, how to do, fine. And why is this required? First of all, the primary reason being that sometimes you have a situation in which you want that Firebug should be present in the browser in which the testing is actually happening. Because when you develop the code, if the code is failing, if the script is failing at some time, you need Firebug, and specifically you need it in the application in which the testing, or in the browser in which the testing is taking place. So you need to have that. Sometimes you need to test through a proxy server, you need to do some proxy settings in Firefox. So you can create a profile, do the proxy settings and use it. Sometimes you want to test the HTTPS websites, which are secure websites handling certificate errors and all. For that again you need Firefox profile. Okay. So this is important. Fine. There is no concept like Chrome profile or Internet Explorer profile. There is no concept of profiling in Google Chrome or IE. The concept of profiling is only there in Mozilla. Fine. So tomorrow what I'll do is I will tell you how to integrate this profile Ashish with the Firefox driver. Okay, how to tell Firefox that open